Ever get that feeling? Like you're juggling a million things at once, deadlines are like right there, breathing down your neck, and then bam, life throws you a curveball.
Yeah, that's the story of entrepreneurship, isn't it? It's like a constant balancing act.
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into a topic that's close to home for so many of us. How to balance the demands of running a business with, well, just being human.
It's something we all face, and yet it's not always easy to talk about.
You got that right. Our guidepost for this deep dive is an insightful LinkedIn article by Carma Spence.
And even if you're not currently facing a major loss or anything, her story is packed with these really practical nuggets of wisdom we can all use.
So let's jump right in. Spence was in the middle of launching this whole new phase of her business, right?
Yeah, imagine it. The to-do list, the client calls, the never-ending email.
The whole shebang. And on top of all that, she was also juggling a full-time job.
Wow, talk about having a lot on your plate.
And then, to make things even more intense, her mother-in-law's health took a turn for the worse.
Oh, wow. It's like a perfect storm of challenges.
Right. And what really struck me was how honestly she talked about that inner tug of war so many entrepreneurs face.
You mean that feeling of being pulled in a million different directions?
Totally. On one hand, you've got this drive to build your business to hit those goals.
And on the other, you're dealing with this huge emotional weight.
Exactly. You need to process things, to grieve, to just be present. It's this constant battle of, should I be pushing harder or giving myself a break?
So real. And there's no easy answer, no magic formula for navigating that.
And here's where Spence's experience gets super interesting, at least for me. She talks about having these bursts of hyper-creativity right in the middle of everything.
Really, in the midst of all that.
Yep. Did that surprise you? Because I got to admit, it kind of threw me for a loop.
It makes you think about grief differently, right? Because we usually associate it with, sadness and withdrawal.
For sure. But it turns out grief is this crazy, complex emotional roller coaster.
Right. And sometimes that roller coaster takes you to unexpected places, like these sudden bursts of energy and inspiration.
Totally. But here's the thing, and Spence points this out beautifully. Those bursts can be fleeting.
Like riding a wave, you're up and then you're down again.
Exactly. And trying to maintain that level of creative output when you're grieving, well, it can lead to burnout faster than, you can say, profit margin.
And burnout on top of everything else is not a good mix.
Definitely not. So we've got this tension, this pull between pushing ahead and needing to hit pause. What does Spence suggest we actually do about it?
Because, let's face it, bills still need to be paid, clients still need attention.
Exactly. So how do you reconcile the demands of running a business with, well, the very real need to process loss and take care of yourself?
Well, that's where I think Spence's big message really comes in, self-compassion.
Okay, self-compassion. I like the sound of that.
It's not about just letting things slide or shirking your responsibility.
Right, yeah.
It's more about recognizing that you're human.
Not a robot.
Exactly. You're allowed to have off days, off weeks even. And actually acknowledging that, acknowledging your own humanity, well, it's not a weakness.
Interesting. So how do you actually implement self-compassion? It's not as simple as writing a sticky note and slapping it on your laptop screen, right?
No, not at all. But Spence gives some really practical advice. One thing that stood out to me was her emphasis on adjusting timelines.
See, now that's something I struggle with. I'm a total deadline-driven person. The thought of pushing things back used to, give me panic attacks.
Oh, I hear you.
But Spence realized that clinging to these rigid timelines, especially when she was grieving, well, it just wasn't doing her or her business any favors.
Made sense to hit pause.
Exactly. In fact, she made the tough call to actually postpone a major product launch, pushed it back by 2 whole months.
Wow, that's a big decision.
It is. But you know what? It gave her that breathing room she needed to grieve, to recharge, and ultimately to come back even stronger.
And probably led to a much better product launch in the end.
That's what I'm thinking. It makes you wonder, what if we all built that kind of flexibility into our businesses from day one?
Right. Not just as a reaction to a crisis or, when things get tough.
Totally. It's like building shock absorbers into your business model.
I love that analogy. It's so true. Because life, it throws those curveballs when you least expect it.
Okay, so adjusting timelines.
Yeah.
Check. What other practical tips does Spence have up her sleeve?
Well, this one might seem kind of obvious, but it's something a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, we really struggle with. Prioritizing self-care.
Oh, tell me about it. Especially when you're wired to be on all the time.
Constantly striving.
Achieving, yeah.
Yeah.
It's way too easy to let self-care slide to the bottom of the priority list.
It happens to the best of us. But as Spence reminds us, self-care is not selfish. It's absolutely essential. And she doesn't just give these vague suggestions like, go take a bubble bath.
Yeah, like treat yourself. Easier said than done.
Exactly. Spence gets really specific, which is super helpful.
Oh, I like that. So, like, what kinds of things? Give me some examples.
She talks about actually blocking out time for walks.
Scheduling it in.
Yes,
Yeah.
like you would a client meeting. Also, scheduling journaling sessions, making time to actually connect with loved ones.
These are all things that we can actually build into our routines.
Even when things get crazy.
Even when the inbox is exploding. That's what makes it feel doable. It's not about carving out this huge chunk of time for a spa day, you know?
Right. It's about those little things, those small acts of self-care.
Micro moments of self-care.
I love it.
There you go.
And, another thing Spence really stresses is the importance of, having a solid support system.
Oh, absolutely. You can't do it alone, even if you're a solopreneur.
Exactly. That network, those people you can lean on, they're crucial.
They really are. Because it's so easy to isolate yourself when you're in the thick of it.
And support, it can look like a lot of different things. It might be a trusted mentor, a business coach, maybe a mastermind group.
Even just an online community.
Exactly, where you feel seen and heard.
Mm.
The key is to, identify those safe spaces where you can be vulnerable.
Be real.
Share what you're struggling with and, just receive encouragement and support.
It makes a world of difference. Now, speaking of support, Spence also talks about the importance of having strong systems in place for your business. She describes them as a sort of safety net.
Oh, interesting. A safety net. I like that.
Yeah, something that lets you step back when you need to without feeling like the whole business is going to fall apart.
Which is a very real fear for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Right. Like having that safety net there gives you the permission to actually deal with things.
Instead of feeling like you've always got to be switched on.
Exactly. And that safety net, it doesn't just help you with the big stuff either.
It's also about those everyday bumps in the road.
Totally. Okay, so this whole conversation's got me thinking.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
If we can have systems for our businesses, right, what about systems for our emotional resilience?
Ooh, now you're onto something. We spend so much time optimizing our workflows, our funnels.
All of it.
But what about optimizing our capacity to, just handle life?
Exactly.
Because let's face it, life can be pretty unpredictable.
Tell me about it. It's like we map out our content calendars.
Our marketing strategies.
Yeah. So maybe we need to map out like our emotional support networks, our go-to self-care routines,
Ooh, I like that.
even our permission slips.
Yeah.
Like giving ourselves permission to actually step back and recharge.
Yes, permission slips. That's such a good way to put it. Because I think so often we feel guilty, right?
Oh, 100%.
Like we should be able to power through.
Yeah, like we should always be on.
Exactly. And Spence's story, it's a powerful reminder that, sometimes the most productive thing you can do.
Is to actually take a break.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To give yourself that grace, that space.
Love that. Okay, so for our listeners out there, all you amazing entrepreneurs building incredible things, what's the one big takeaway you hope they walk away with from Spence's experience?
For me, it really boils down to this: grace, not guilt.
Grace, not guilt.
Yep. Grace for yourself, grace for the process, grace for the fact that, things won't always go according to plan.
And that's okay.
More than okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes slowing down, it's not a sign of weakness.
It's actually the key to coming back stronger.
100%.
Love it. And for everyone listening, I have a little challenge for you this week. What's one small step you can take right now to build a bit more grace and flexibility into your life? Even if you're not, in the middle of a major challenge right now. Maybe it's blocking off 15 minutes for a walk, reaching out to that mentor you've been meaning to connect with. Or maybe it's just giving yourself permission to, close the laptop an hour early tonight and just be present. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
do it for yourself because your well-being,
Yeah.
well, it's the foundation for everything else.
It really is.
Until next time, keep diving deep, but remember to come up for air.